Okay, so welcoming everybody. I just want to mention again the sponsor, please. So today was generously sponsored by Fega Rachel Bas Bela Shendel, and she should have a refuah shlema keref ayin, and only have everything good, all the brachas that Hashem can shower on her. She should just feel good, and everything should be good, Bezrat Hashem. And now I want to thank our speaker, and I want to introduce her with kavod. As we all know, we've all been privy to hearing the Torah from Rebbetzin Heller Gottlieb. Rebbetzin Heller Gottlieb is an internationally known, outstanding scholar of Jewish studies, as well as a gifted lecturer. She is an American board Haredi educator based in Jerusalem. She is a senior faculty member at the Neve Yerushalayim College for Women, principal of the Benos Avigal Seminary on the Neve campus, and a lecturer for the online Jewish college. She's a sought-after speaker, popular worldwide as a weekly columnist in Hamodia. She is the author of 9 books, More Precious Than Pearls, This Way Up, Our Bodies, Our Souls, Let's Face It, Battle Plans, Return, Your Path to Lasting Change, Here You Are, The Balancing Act, and A Distant Mirror. She is also, she married also in 2020, she married during the Corona epidemic, she married Rabbi David Gottlieb, noted and beloved educator. So with that, I feel very, very privileged. Thank you so much, and I'm going off.
Okay, so I want you to know that your organizer is very, very organized, an organized organizer. She's been pursuing me efficiently for your benefit. You really deserve to value her for what she is and what she does. Okay, so we're going to be talking about being Ruth, not learning Ruth, but being Ruth. So we have to question where our own stories begin and where Ruth's stories begin. Ruth's story actually begins in the creation itself. In the creation narrative, where you have the very beginning psukim telling us about the world's beginning, one of the phrases is Ruach Elokim Merachefet al Pnei Hamayim. The Targum Yonatan ben Uziel translates this as the spirit of Mashiach hovered over the waters. So what that means is the plan for Mashiach to evolve and become and redeem was there from the beginning. And it had to be, because the world at its beginning was tohu vavohu v'choshech al pnei tahom. It was dark, it was chaotic, it was empty on the face of the depths. So the world was created for redemption. So what that means is that the world was never created as a place of inherent shlemus and perfection. It was created as a place in which the crown of all creation, humans, are meant to bring forth something out of nothing, an imitation of Hashem, who created something out of nothing. We have to bring purity and goodness out of the nothingness and the chaos that's inherent to this world, and through doing this, we become imitative of Hashem. So this is the beginning of everybody's story. Everybody's story begins with our own mortality, our being born to human parents, okay, and as we emerge from the nothingness of non-existence, we're already given character traits. The basic character traits that you have are there when you were conceived. And the reason is that everybody has to do this task of bringing light to dark places in a way that's individual, in a way that has to do with who they are from the beginning. Now let's look at Ruth. So that would be true, everything we just said now would be true of every human being. What about Ruth specifically? Where did her story begin? So, as you know, after Lot escaped from the chaos of Sodom and its destruction, he took refuge in a cave. And he found wine there and became drunk. Now, the question would be, why is wine in a cave? As those of you go hiking, I never saw wine in a cave. Why was there wine in a cave? So Rashi tells us rather cryptically, quoting the Midrash, that the wine was there from the time of creation. Now, what does that mean when Hashem was creating the world itself? On the early days of creation, he made a cave, and he put in the cave let's say, Buzz and maybe Bartanura and whatever wine that you like with a label. No. What did Hashem do? He created the world in a way which vineyards will grow in a specific place, and there'll be a cave there. And in order to store the wine, what could be more convenient than storing wine in the cave that's adjacent to the vineyard? That's what Hashem did to begin with. Now let's look at ourselves. So as we said, we're born with specific middos, but we're also born in specific places and in a specific time. So the parallel to wine in the cave is your early environment. Hashem placed you with parents who have whatever background they have, come from whatever country they come from, and you yourself are going to be in a place that Hashem wanted you to be. What does this have to do with Ruth? So as a consequence of Lot getting drunk, as we know, his daughters slept with him, his two daughters slept with him, thinking that the world had come to an end. They had no way of interpreting what they saw in terms of the amazing destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah and the 5 surrounding boroughs, or mini cities. So they did this in order to reestablish the population because they believed in life. So this already tells us something about ourselves. On some level, we all believe in life, which is why instinctively we disregard everything in order to preserve our own survival. Okay, next, there were 2 daughters, the elder daughter and the younger daughter. They both became pregnant, which is, of course, an unusual event. Women usually don't become pregnant from only one intercourse. So what happened here is, again, Hashem aided the event in transpiring. Look at your life now. When you look at your life, everything that was there was aided by Hashem. The statistical odds of you being you are over the top. Everything comes from Hashem's providence. So now the 2 daughters responded differently. Okay, the older daughter named her child Moab, which means from my father. That's like naming a child incest. The second daughter, however, named her child Ammon, which is a much more refined name. It means of my people, not of my father, of my people. So of the 2, which one do you think would hold the key of redemption? So instinctively, we would say, well, Ammon, she made a good choice, and therefore something holy has already begun. The process is already there. That's where Mashiach could no, but that's not what happened. What happened is that Mashiach via Ruth, but there are stops along the way, which will include Boaz. Don't forget him in this story. Okay, that Mashiach was going to come from the lowest of all possible places. Think about what's involved in calling someone Moab. So today we're familiar, lo aleinu, of people who do terrible things, who publicize what they do in pride. We're familiar with the gay parade. What are they saying? If I say it's right, it's right. I'm not responsible to any higher power, and I'll take pride in it. I'll take pride in who I am. So this is what Moab means. Incest, I'm proud of incest. Yes, it was the right thing to do. Okay, even though the other daughter, who was more refined, realized that even if it was necessary, it was tragic. Okay, so the people Ammon, the people Moab, gave birth in the course of generations to 2 different descendants. From Ammon did come someone holy, one of Shlomo's wives. But from Moab came Ruth. What did Moab develop into being? So Moab became a people that were known for 2 traits. One was cruelty, and the other was promiscuity. So cruelty and promiscuity are the worst of all middos. Okay, when we trace our own bad middos, we all have bad middos as well as good. The Gra says that all bad middos could be traced back to gaiva and taiva, a feeling of one's own superiority, which is gaiva. Gaiva is not good self-esteem. Gaiva is feeling superior to others. A person who has all of the gifts, beauty, wealth, intelligence, whatever, if they have any sense at all, they'll realize these are gifts. So that won't make them feel superior. Just like if someone gives you any gift, you realize that the value of the gift has to do with the love of the giver, not your own achievement. So gaiva is the source of many sins, lashon hara, sinas chinam, all of the ways in which we assert that our way of doing things is the way. Okay, taiva, of course, physical desires take people to places they shouldn't go and don't want to go, except for the taiva that drives them. So Moab had both of these terrible traits, and they came forth as they became a people. We see these traits coming forth again and again and again. Okay, so now we have two things. We have the idea of traits being inborn, and we have the idea of environments being generated through Hashem's providence. So now I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about your own life. You have inborn traits that if you look at yourself and think about your early years, and you'll say, well, what did I want the most and how do I respond to events? You'll know your traits. And we all have environments that are unique, and every environment has things that are lacking. Why are you there? Why do you have difficult traits? Why are you put in a difficult environment? To bring light to dark places through becoming your higher self and through contending with your environment. Okay, so now we get to Ruth herself. So Ruth herself was a Moabite princess. Her father, Eglon, was not only a Moabite, but he was engaged in active battle against the Jews. Okay, she ends up marrying Elimelech's son, Machlon. Who was Elimelech? He was a wealthy man, a prestigious man, but that's nothing to who he really was. He was the Gadol Hador. And what happened to him? There was a time in Israel in which the Jews were disunified. I know that you can't even imagine such a thing, but the Jews were disunified. So what Hashem did is he brought a famine upon the country because he is Hashem who believes in free choice, because if you're forced, you're not building anything. A famine could bring people to one of two places. One is we're in this together, we have to help each other. Or I barely have enough for me, I'm not going to give you. Okay, those are the two choices. It could make things better or worse. Boaz, who had in his hand the ability to make it better, he was wealthy, realized there's no way he could sustain the entire people. Even a wealthy person can't sustain an entire nation. So people are begging him and asking him, wanting, and they're right. And he had to say no. And that feeling of being set upon, the Mishulachim at my door for 24/7, I didn't know what to do, I have nowhere to hide, caused him to leave Eretz Yisrael and lose the zechut of Eretz Yisrael and go to Moab. What's the zechut of Eretz Yisrael? Hashgacha. He should have recognized it's Hashem's hashgacha. Hashem is humbling me by telling the people, I should have told the people, I don't have. I wish I had. I wish I had. I have nothing. I'm giving away everything I can. Let's stuff them together. That's what he should have done if he was more respondent to Hashem's hashgacha. But he ended up in Moab, and his two sons married out. Okay, so his elder son, Machlon, as we said already, married Ruth, and the younger son, Kilion, married Orpah. But their stories didn't begin there. So we know the storyline of Ruth's story. I'm going to go into it, but not in very great detail because of time limitations. She ends up seeing Naomi, and Naomi thinks that she wants. She saw a light that she wanted to bring to darkness. She followed Naomi into Eretz Yisrael. Naomi tried to discourage her by pointing out the difficulty of the life she was choosing. And from the answers that Ruth gave, we know the questions Naomi asked. She said, I'll sleep where you sleep. That was an answer. That was after being told the laws of Yichud. I'll go where you go, which should have been first. Okay. Naomi told the laws of Tchum Shabbat. You can't go wherever you want to go, whenever you want to go. And the rest of them went in the same way. And she kept on saying, what? I'm going to do it. I'll attach myself to you. Now, for her to commit to that was huge. So where was that coming from? So with that's coming from, and this is going to have to do with Machlon, Kilion, Yibum, and Mashiach. Okay, just bear with me. The more you see dark, the more you should want light. So in real people's lives, I know people who've come in from very difficult circumstances. So I'm going to just tell you two very brief stories. One happened 80 years ago, and the other one happened 2 weeks ago. 80 years ago, there was a girl who was taken in a concentration camp and placed in a Nazi brothel, if you could imagine such a horrible thing. She had been engaged before the war, and miraculously, both she and her husband survived, and they met each other after the war. And she told him, I don't want to marry you. And she wouldn't tell him why. Now, she was just a young girl. She was 16, 17. How old could she have been? So they went to the Rav, and the Rav was able to pull out of her why. She said, I'm disgusting. I'm tameh. I'm repulsive. He's pure. He's holy. I can't marry someone like that. It's not a match. And the Rav told her, you have one mistake. You think that you are the villain of the story. The Nazis are the villain. You're not the villain. You could choose life and you could choose Kedusha, and it'll have more value because of the backdrop upon which you're choosing this. A story from 2 weeks ago, a little less than 2 weeks, in fact. So a soldier was wounded in Gaza, and various procedures were done, surgeries. Whatever the medical side of it is, he ended up with kidney failure. And apparently his close relatives were not good matches for him. So they put out on the media, they put out a call. Anybody who's willing to donate a kidney, please contact this number. How many people, I'm going to ask you to guess, how many people do you think answered? 5 people, 20 people? What do you think? Give me a number. Unmute yourself for a minute.
I'm sure.
How many?
I think at least 1,000 people. We're Kal Yisrael. I think a lot of people.
Okay, so Vicky says 1,000 people. 3,400 answers were Klal Yisrael. But you needed the dark to bring that forth. Had there been no war, had there been no injury, had there been no need, none of this brilliant light would have come forth. And I saw a picture that moved me very deeply. Okay, the donor that turned out to be most suitable was a young man who lives in a yeshuv called Yitzhar, from, and he shone together with the soldier. He asked the soldier for a bracha. You would think the soldier would ask him for the bracha, but no, he asked the soldier for a bracha. Why? Because he recognized the soldier's mesiras nefesh as also a ray of kedusha and or in the midst of this darkness. Okay, so we all could see this in the difficulties of where we're coming from. Everything is hashgachic, everything is purposeful. Running away from hashgacha does not make things better. So now I'm going to fast forward and talk about Mashiach for a moment. What's Mashiach for? Who is he? What will it be like? So the Gemara says that we should know Mashiach's name. How are you supposed to know Mashiach's name? Here in Eretz Yisrael, on Rehov Malchei Yisrael, there's a big nut store, and the owner's name is Mashiach, but I don't think he's necessarily the one. Okay, so after giving a listing of the qualities Mashiach must have, in the Rambam we find this Chacham Karov L'Shlomo, Navi Karov L'Moshe, somebody who's mitgaber on his Yetzer Hara all of the time. But what is this great person supposed to do, and how will that affect us? So we're told in the initial stages, and again, there's a progression, the difference between now and when Mashiach comes will have no physical impact in terms of the way the world operates naturally. So if let's say you're a little overweight, which is something I relate to very well, when Mashiach comes, you're not going to wake up size 2. Okay, the physical world will be as it is. So what's going to happen? So by knowing his name, you could know something about what's going to happen. So the Gemara tells us 5 different names. Okay, the first is Menachem. He'll bring comfort. So let's go back to you and your story, Ruth and her story. So Ruth is directed by Hashgacha and by her own free choices to Eretz Yisrael. And she's taking gleanings in the field. And the field just sort of happens to be Boaz's field. And Boaz recognizes her as a great person. How did he recognize her? By the fact that she had gone in the exact opposite direction of where she came from. The Moabites were known for cruelty and promiscuity. Here she is in the field, a princess, gleaning for her mother-in-law. What chesed. And the way she gleaned, she would bend her knees rather than her back, not to expose her legs. Great modesty. So was she that way because she was a Moabite? Or in spite of the fact she was a Moabite? It was because she had to go the whole 180 degrees. As we will greet Mashiach, we'll find that all of our struggles took us to where we need to be. We'll find comfort. So the first name is the one who brings us comfort. We could see where our choices can take us. Next, the second name is Chizkiah, the one who gives you strength in Hashem. So recognizing that the koach we have to bring light to dark places is from Hashem. We have to want it and we have to try, but the koach itself is from Hashem. What is this like? Envision somebody having a heart attack suddenly in the street, a severe heart attack. So people call Hatzalah, and the Hatzalah man comes and he does everything right. Whether the man lives or dies, does that depend exclusively on the Hatzalah man's skill? No. His lifespan was determined on Rosh Hashanah. But the Hatzalah's man's tzidkus is that he's doing what he should do, which is to try to preserve life, but the result is from Hashem. So the basic reality that we live with is our efforts belong to us and consequences belong to Hashem, but we only are here for the efforts. So we'll see, we'll take strength in this. We made the efforts we can, and our strength will be given from Hashem that we should succeed. Then, the third name was stated by Rav Shiloh, and he says Mashiach's name is Shiloh. Then the fourth name was given by Rav Ami, and he says Mashiach's name is Ami. What's that supposed to mean? So Maharal explains that every person, since we're all B'Tselem Elokim, have the will to bring light to dark places, which is as close as a human could be to Yesh Me'ayin. So when Mashiach comes, what will happen? We'll find that place in us that says, yes, I could bring light anywhere. Hashem will help me. I'll have the strength. I'll bring light. And that's what Geula means. Geula means, Maharal says, being able to be your highest self. So even if the world doesn't change externally in terms of its physical nature, we change. We find our highest selves. And therefore, Shiloh could say, yes, I'm Shiloh. Mashiach brought that out in me. He understood me. Ami will say, yes, Mashiach's name is Ami. He understood my specific kochos and brought it out in me. And Mashiach will be called Ruti or Michal or Sarah or Ellen or whatever. That's what being redeemed means. So if Mashiach were to come still today and he's there, yes, the person who could be Mashiach came out of whoever with these traits, okay, and does the signs for which people will recognize him as Mashiach. Let's say Mashiach comes at 1 in the afternoon. 2 in the afternoon, you are a different person. Not on the outside, not because of external circumstances changing, but on the inside. But, and this is a big but, he has another name. The name is Bar Napli, which means the miscarried child. It means there'll be many times we think Mashiach is here and about to come, and we're disappointed. So there have been times when we had false messiahs, such as Shabtai Tzvi. There have been times when it looked, everything was so close, and then somehow it doesn't happen. And that's also part of it. It's a test in our ability to maintain our emunah, which, as the Gra says, is the key to Mashiach's coming. So we're all Ruth. And what happened to Ruth at the end? She did Yibum with Boaz. And through doing Yibum, she brought down and redeemed her husband Machlon's son. Machlon was wrong, but what? She redeemed it because everybody has a part that's redeemable. And that act of redemption, what was the next line? The next line was her own child was called Oved, which means the one who works. They would have thought if she did Yibum, and the purpose of Yibum is to perpetuate the name of the husband who was Nifter, she should have named him Machlon Jr. No, she understood what this world is, what the tikkun of Machlon is, what everyone's tikkun is serving. And as we know, he's the ancestor of Yishai, who's the ancestor of David. So what does David do? So David fulfills human potential that was there from beginning. Okay, so you're familiar with the Gemara that tells us that Adam was shown everything. He saw the whole story from beginning to end, all of the people, all of the situations. That's why it says in the Torah, Zeh Sefer Toldot Adam. So he saw that there would be born a person with enormous capacity who would have hardly any lifespan. So he said, take 70 years of mine. So David was Adam. That's why he lived 70 years. He had 70 years of Adam's lifespan. What does that mean to us? Adam was the source of all souls. Your life, the life of everybody you know, the spiritual potentials, the circumstantial realities, they were all in Adam. So David had those same traits, as will Mashiach, the universality of the soul, in which he could see in everyone the redeemable point. So what does this have to do with David specifically? So if you were, let's say, 6 years old, you would already know from school that all of the early people had names, right? Avram's last name was Avinu, right? Moshe's last name was Rabbeinu. What's David's last name? Hamelech. He's the king. The function of a king is to be the heart of the people. So he could reach to your heart and find the redeemable part. But what you have to do now, today, is to have enough emunah that there is a redeemable part in yourself, regardless of your circumstances, regardless of the difficulty of your midos, regardless of your present life. There's something holy and bright and brilliant, and everything could be turned around for the good. How did David do this in his own life? So when you read about his life, or even sometimes when you read Tehillim, you see above each parak a little bit of biographical notes sometimes. Anything that could happen to a person in life happened to David. Was he rich? Yes. Was he poor? Yes. Was he powerful? Yes. Was he powerless? Yes. Did he have a wonderful family? Yes. Was he betrayed by his own children? Yes. Anything that could happen happened to him. But there was one thing that was steady, even when he made tragic spiritual mistakes. For him, Hashem was Melech. Hashem Melech was his life. And he was called David HaMelech because he brought the heart of the Jews to Hashem, his king, and made us aware of Hashem's kingship. Okay, so now when you look for yourself, you could find yourself in Ruth Be'ezrat Hashem and bring light to all of the places that you'd step. You should have a wonderful Shavuos because the only way you'll know how to step forward is through the Torah. Without the Torah, we could have the best intentions, but we won't find the right path. This is why the Torah is called Eitz Chaim. So if you picture a tree with many leaves, many branches, no matter where you are in life, the Torah is what gives you life and gives you direction. We should be zocha to a wonderful Shavuos. If you have time, if you have questions, the time is now.
Rebbetzin, I just want to ask you something. Just interesting because you brought out a lot how the names that were given were almost the revelation of what that person's life was meant to be.
Right.
So have we lost? So, you know, they say that a parent has Ruach HaKodesh when they give their children. So have we lost giving the names as the revelation for that neshama of what they have to accomplish in that life, or what we believe that they should be accomplishing in their life? So we don't have that Ruach HaKodesh anymore? That's what it seems like.
We have Ruach HaKodesh, but there are two complicating factors. One is, even if you know what somebody's name is, let's say you name somebody Chana, that's Chain, and Chana's Chain, the Midrash says, came through her tefillah. You know this, let's say. But nobody here is new. We've all been here before. The Arizal said that already in his time. So how this chen is supposed to come forth, to come from ways in which we don't discern it easily. So yes, there's Ruach HaKodesh, but we don't always see the consequences of our choices.
What about the concept of people giving English names in it by calling them the English name and Hebrew names as their Hebrew name? Is that also is that a complicated thing in terms, because if you call the person that name, isn't that their essence, even though they might have a Hebrew name?
So let's say somebody's name in Hebrew is Chava, but everybody calls her Evie. Okay.
Right.
So what the influence of that is, I don't know. She still is Chava. What the influence of being called Evie the whole time is, I don't know enough to say.
Interesting. Okay, I'm going to open it up to a few questions. If anybody have a question for the Rebbitzin?
I have a question.
Hi, Malka. Go ahead, hi, Malka.
Thank you. I just asking the Rebbitzin if she could repeat just the last thing she said about the Torah is the Eitz Chaim, and you mentioned two things, life and something else. I didn't miss it.
Yes, so it gives us life, but it also gives us direction.
Direction.
As we walk, every step we have choices to make. So we could have the best intentions, but if we don't know how to walk, what to do, which we could only do through the Torah, we don't end up where we want to be.
I see that Yafa, go ahead, Yafa.
I'm just wondering, why did they have such weird names, the two sons, Machlon and Kilion?
So this is interesting because we asked about names. So Machlon's name was supposed to relate to Mechila, that forgiveness and being open towards forgiveness was supposed to be the name that he was given. Kilion is the same word as the word Kala, the one who completes. But because they used their traits wrong, Machlon's name was turned around to come from the word Machot. He was erased. And Kilion was Kilayon, which means destruction. So they took traits that could have been very good and used them in the wrong way, but they were redeemed in the future through Gilgal.
So interesting. Judith, I know you had a question before, Judith.
Yeah, so
go ahead.
Talking about names, what about the ones maybe coming from other countries and they have a secular name and they have a Jewish name?
Yes.
But
yes.
somehow they get stuck with the secular name.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's what they are called.
Yes, so even though it's good to be called by your Jewish name, it's not forbidden to be called by a secular name. And many of the names that are Jewish actually are translations in secular languages of Hebrew names. For instance, Zalman is Solomon, is Shlomo. Okay, so we could use these names, but the core of the person's soul would be the Hebrew name. We could use the secular names.
You just before I take another question, you mentioned also that
Next
the whole
question will be the last question. Okay.
Yeah. The last question you said?
This next question will be the last question.
Okay, so then I'm going to give it to somebody else. So let me give somebody else a chance. Charlene, you want to ask a question? But a question. Just a question.
Yeah, a question. So I know in reality, Jewish women will have two of them will have changed their name midlife, which ends with an L, like Gabrielle, Michaela, Gabriela. They were told to put the name of God in their name. So they changed their name to Jewish name in midlife. Can one do that? Change the name for yourself?
So changing your name on your own isn't advisable. People add names. Adding names is much less of a step away from whatever happened when your parents had that moment of Ruach HaKodesh and actually changing a name. By and large, the Rabbanim will not recommend a changed name. They'll recommend adding a name. So being Gabrielle instead of Gavi or something like that, but on the Ketubah and other religious documents would have both names.
Okay, thank you, Rebbitzin. This was amazing.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
everyone.
much.